Welcome to a special edition of Highlights. Today we have two guests. We have Matthew Nordhaus, who is a member of the Littleton Select Board, and Matthew is the liaison with the Select Board to the Council on Aging Board. And our other guest is Maren Toohill, who is the town planner, and both of them are going to be speaking about issues that relate to seniors that will be on the town meeting. So we're going to start off with Maren. Maren, would you like to explain a little bit about what your job is as town planner?
Thank you, Susan and Anita, for inviting me on this special edition of the Highlights show. As town planner, a lot of my duties are to support the work of the planning board, and then also to push forward the initiatives to implement the Littleton master plan. So the master plan was completed and adopted in 2017. One of the recommendations of the master plan was to put development in areas of town where it made sense for more development. One of those areas is the commuter rail station. So we got another grant and did some detailed work on what Littleton wanted to see near the commuter rail station. That study was called the Littleton Station Village Vision Plan. So one of the recommendations of the vision plan was then to look at the zoning in that area and put zoning in place that would allow some dense development and mixed commercial and residential uses there. So that brings us to the current 40R proposal.
Exactly what is the change, inclusory of the housing for the senior residential development? I understand that 50% of the total number of dwelling units shall be affordable and that the planning board may reduce this to 25%. How is that different from the current existing bylaw?
Thank you, Anita. The existing bylaw does require 50%, a range of 25 to 50% of the units in a senior residential development to be affordable. The changes in the bylaw leave that part in place. There would be no change to that part of the bylaw, just a clarification of when it applies.
Very good.
And then another change is adding the senior apartment as a new defined term under senior residential development. And can you explain why you view this as necessary? Is it needed in order to develop apartment buildings that are exclusively for seniors?
Thank you, Susan. The new definition proposed to be added to the bylaw, senior apartments, gives property owners and developers more flexibility in what types of senior residential units to propose, and gives the planning board more flexibility being able to approve those. And yes, the purpose is to allow for senior apartments for seniors and the disabled persons.
Okay, and we were also talking about independent living units. This changes the definition of independent living units to state that they shall include meals, housing, grounds maintenance, security, and common areas, and common facilities for events and activities. What kinds of apartments or senior facilities will this apply to? This seems to be an expanded definition of independent living that is common usage.
Yes, Anita, that's correct. The current bylaw was a little unclear as to what the definition of independent living units is, and this provides some clarity to that definition, gives the designers and the planning board a clear picture of what the town is looking for as far as what types of senior residential developments can be approved and built in Littleton. So when you add this to the senior apartments, the cottages, and the assisted living facilities, there's a wide range of housing types that could be approved under the senior residential development bylaw as amended.
So does that mean if a contractor comes in and asks for independent living units, that it does have to include the housekeeping and maintenance and security of common areas? Is that what that's going to mean?
Yes, if the unit is being approved as an independent living unit, yes, it would include those items. But if it doesn't include all of those items, perhaps it would be a senior apartment that would also be allowed under the bylaw.
Okay, and so just independent senior apartments would not have to include all of this?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Maren, in your position, the big things that affect seniors are these bylaw changes, and then certainly the Littleton Station area. Is that correct?
Yes, I see two different articles on the town meeting warrant that could significantly affect seniors, one being the changes we were discussing to the senior residential development and inclusionary housing zoning bylaw, and the other being the proposed 40R zoning bylaw district to be added near the commuter rail station.
And that's because the 40R area hopefully will include some senior apartments or senior facilities of some kind.
Yes.
Affordable and for seniors.
Yes, the 40R zoning bylaw would likely include or set the table for future development for apartments near the commuter rail station. Apartments benefit seniors, they benefit young people looking for their first apartment away from home, and they also benefit young families. Being able to move to the area or being able to go from a current rental situation in town to perhaps a condo.
Right. So definitely we need to get seniors to attend town meeting on June 12th. So thank you very much, Maren.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for clearing it up. I was very confused, but I feel more confident that I understand what I'm voting for now. Thank you.
Me too. And moving right along, we have Matthew Nordhouse. Matthew, can you describe a little bit for us your role as the Select Board Liaison to the Council on Aging Board?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be able to share some of this information because I think attending town meeting and voting on these articles is very important. I think my primary role as the liaison to the Council on Aging is to listen and to attend the meetings of the COA board and the subcommittees, and to take note of the goals and desires of that board, of the COA and of the subcommittees, and bring it back to the select board to help communicate that information to the select board. And I also try to bring items that I think are important to the Council on Aging to their meetings from the select board and from some of the other boards I sit on. I'm also a member of the Littleton Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing Trust, and I was on the Station Area Committee, which has concluded its work.
And Matthew, how did the Select Board develop this year's priorities, and what steps are being taken to make a senior center a reality?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking.
It's a loaded question.
It's not. Right after I was elected last year, the Select Board developed a set of goals, and we all agreed that the top two priorities were the sewer and a senior center. And so I'm going to need to check my notes because I don't want to forget anything. Some of the things that we've done here so far this year include we worked with LLB architects to really define what we would need from the point of view of Elder and Human Services and the COA, what we would need for a senior center. Things like how much space, how big should it be, what sort of meeting rooms would we have, what kind of services would EHS offer, because it would also be administrative offices for them. And following up on that, LLB and the town investigated 3 or 4 different locations in town. We looked at the Indian Hill, the music school, we looked at the DCU building, we looked at the existing town hall, and we also looked at a proposal to build a whole new building. I think right now it's still very early, but it does appear as though building a new building might be the most cost effective. And so with that information that we had, we now are bringing a warrant article to the town meeting to ask for 2 things. The first is we want to transfer $80,000 from unused capital assessments of prior years in order to do the very first step, sort of due diligence on the design. And what that would do is help us define the scope of the project. And we also are asking the town to borrow $1 million to do the full design work on the senior center. And we're assuming that the cost is $10 million and that design typically accounts for about 10% of the total cost.
So there will be 2 articles or 2 things on the warrant then that affect the senior center, the borrowing of the $80,000 and then the using of the $80,000 and then the borrowing of the $1 million for design.
So I believe those are both in the same article.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. With spring town meeting coming up on June 12th, we'll say it again. What warrant articles, other than those 2, or you can expand on those 2, from your perspective, should seniors be aware of?
Well, Sue, every article is important.
Well, that's true.
But yes, of course. So Article 10, well, okay, let's first clarify. I believe the numbering of the articles is final, but it might not be. And so I'm going to use the current article numbers, but I'll also say the names. So Article 10 is the Senior Center project, and that's the article we just talked about. It's borrowing $1 million and transferring $80,000 for the first stage. Article 11 is entitled Northbridge HCA. This refers to, as some of you may know, Amazon is moving into town. And they are going to move into a large industrial building at the intersection of Route 2 and 495. And part of the host community agreement that we negotiated with them as part of their plan to move in includes $30,000 being paid to Elder and Human Services to fund a study of pedestrian transportation and routes in town. Article 23 is the Senior Citizens and Veterans Tax Work-Off Abatement Program, and that is an article just to fund that program, which I'm sure many of your viewers are familiar with. Article 24 is the Senior Property Tax Exemption changes. So Kathy Miller, who's the town assessor, brought an excellent idea to the select board at our last meeting. Over the last few years, the requirements for a senior applying for a tax abatement on their property tax have become restrictive to the point where I think she mentioned last year only nine people were approved for that. And so she brought us a scenario that allowed us to change those requirements. The current program has very strict limits that are required by the state. And I don't think it really takes Littleton's property values into account. And that's why so few people qualify. But the change that we'd like to make would, we think, open it up to perhaps as many as 90 people. And I think this is a really fantastic way that we can help seniors in Littleton who need help with their tax burden. Article 26 is LCTV funding. Hey, you're watching it right now. LCTV is fantastic. They have kept us informed and educated and entertained during COVID. I think I can't say enough great stuff about them. The town has made a change so that we are no longer paying for the employees' health insurance, and as a result, they need to transfer funds in order to, because they pay their own way every year typically. So that's Article 26. And then Article 32, which you've spoken about quite a bit already, is the station area. The 40R zoning, the area which is proposed to be zoned is next to the commuter rail station. It's along Foster Street between the commuter rail and the Life Care Center. And as Maren mentioned, it provides for denser development in exchange for some financial support from the state. And what we really hope that it'll do, in addition to developing some mixed commercial use and hopefully taking that plot of land and using it for apartments and townhouses and maybe condos, is that we will build in some senior housing. And it might be restricted to seniors, or it might just be small, affordable housing, which we know is in great demand in Littleton. And so this is the very first step in a long process. I think it will be years and years before any development is finalized, but I do think it's an important measure to help with our housing. Our current housing diversity is non-existent, and I believe it will improve that a great deal. And I think that's all of the articles that I have notes about.
Well, that was a lot of articles and very comprehensive. And definitely, seniors, you need to get out to town meeting on June 12th. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being our guests today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.